615-515-5566. Again, that number is 615-5566.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 12 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. A few years ago, I knew a guy who was in his 40s. He wasn't that old, and he had he was a truck driver, and he had been in a terrible accident. And after the accident, he was in a coma. And after he recovered from the coma, he was never the same. He ended up living at an assisted living facility here in Ocala. And that's how I knew him, because that's where I worked. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know him before that. I only knew him after the accident and after the coma and everything. And this guy was a very fun guy. He didn't live much longer. I think he lived maybe 2 or 3 years longer. And I don't even know if his death was somehow related to his accident, but he would often tell me how his wife would come into the room and talk to the nurses, and they thought he was gone, like he was not able to hear them, but he could hear everything. Mm-hmm. He could hear everything. He was aware of everything they were saying, and it was an interesting thing to hear, because you often think that when you're with somebody, or you speak to somebody, who is, either, I don't know if I've ever been in the room of somebody with a coma, to be honest, but let's say they're out of surgery and they're still under medication. You talk to them, right? When my dad was in the hospital, we had observed that they were giving him psych medicines that were making him behave differently than he was. He was not the same person. And we demanded that they stop giving him psych medicines. Mm-hmm. And so what the doctor did, he decided to change the psych medicines rather than take them off.
Yes.
And when the nurse came in to give him the medication, I said, well, what is that? And she told me what it was. I said, well, what is it? Not because I don't know medication names. And she said, it's a psych medicine. I said, no, we said no psych medicine. So the doctor said so. I said, yeah, but the family says we don't want any. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need psych medicines. The patient experience is kind of what I'm telling you about here. That's the name of the book that we're going to talk about. Brian Boyle wrote this story. He's got an amazing story about an accident, too. The patient experience, the importance of care, communication, and compassion in the hospital room. Brian Boyle is the National Volunteer Spokesman for the American Red Cross. He's a columnist with the Huffington Post. He's a patient advocate for the Armstrong Institute. He's a recipient of the Daily Points of Light Award, the Johns Hopkins Martin Luther King Jr. Community Service Award, and the Champion of Change Award from President Barack Obama. Again, his book is called The Patient Experience. Good morning, Brian Boyle.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the air with us today. Where are you right now?
I'm up here near Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay. I think you're talking about a very important subject, especially in this day and age when there's almost this, what do you call it, like a factory mentality in some hospitals, where it's piecework. Like this guy, that's his specialty, and that's all he does, and don't ask me about anything other than that. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a assembly line kind of a thing.
Yeah, I remember with my experiences that the most effective approach was when everybody was on the same platform of applying the treatment, applying the care. When my doctors worked with the nurses and the surgeons and the respiratory therapists, physical therapists, and my parents, everybody had a say-so in what was taking place in that hospital room.
Tell us about your accident. When was it and what was it? What happened?
10 years ago, long story short, regular summer day, crossed on local intersection, and I was struck in my driver's side door by a speeding dump truck. The injuries were catastrophic, carbon across my chest, shattered ribs, shattered pelvis, collapsed lungs. Pretty much every major organ was damaged. I was medevaced out from the accident scene to my local shock trauma unit, was there for 2 months in ICU in a medically induced coma on life support, brought back to life 8 times, and spent the next 3 years recovering all throughout different hospitals.
Wow. Did you experience hearing what was going on while you were in a coma?
I would say for a majority of my time in the coma, I was very coherent, I was very tuned in, and I had to almost become hypersensitive to my surroundings to understand what was taking place, what was going to happen day to day, and that's pretty much my survival. What was dependent on the surroundings around me.
Were you aware that they were doing anything that you didn't approve of?
Oh, I mean, being a patient, I trusted my care providers, and I had a lot of great care providers. I had a lot of amazing care providers, and the difference was the level of communication, the level of care, the way they approached me when they came into the room. They talked to me. They got to know me, even though I couldn't respond back to them. They still made an attempt. Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. And so that must have done something for you internally. I mean, to know that so they were explaining to you even though you couldn't respond, and even though they weren't sure that you could hear them. That you could hear them.
Exactly, and even just like the smallest things, like, Brian, we're going to take blood from you right now. Brian, we're going to give you some medication. They would just explain to me. They would just talk to me. I wasn't just a body on the hospital bed, but I was a person, and that was the main difference between the great care providers and the incredible care providers. Did
anybody ever come in? Now, this is going to sound flippant, but I actually feel like it's a serious question, even though other people may not. But did anybody ever come in, like a family member who had no clue about medicine, but they would sit with you and tell you funny stories or jokes even?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every day. I had a lot of family, a lot of support going through the recovery process, and even though I was comatose, the nurses would tell my parents or my family or my friends, you can talk to Brian. You can talk to him about anything. Keep his mind active. You have the radio turned on. They would just talk about my favorite music, talk about the Olympics, because back in 2004 we had the Olympics taking place. They would just talk to me. They would just provide positive energy, provide ways of just keeping me tuned into a pleasant environment.
Wow. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Robin.
Did you ever cry where you would shed tears?
If I did, it wasn't by my control. It was pretty much just the body's reaction to whatever the pain stimulus was. But the thing was, I would have to respond back through blinking. That was my yes or no commands. And some days the medication was so heavy, the medication, I couldn't respond back. I was too weak or I was too sedated. So if I showed any reaction, it would have came through my eyes blinking or moving my toes, moving my fingers, and sometimes shedding a few tears as well.
Wow. We need to take a little break and we'll be right back. Brian Boyle is the author of the book called The Patient Experience, The Importance of Care, Communication, and Compassion in the Hospital Room. We'll take a little break and we'll be right back. Let me get everything set here. We'll be right back. This is WOCA Ocala.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For today, times of clouds and sun with a shower or thunderstorm mainly during the afternoon and evening hours, the high 82 to 86. Partly cloudy overnight, low 66 to 70. Times of clouds and sun tomorrow with a shower or thunderstorm, high 84 to 88. Wednesday, mostly cloudy and warm with a shower or thunderstorm likely in the afternoon, high 84 to 88. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Johnny, what are you doing in the bathroom? What are you saying? Wait, where are your toy cars? Oh no, tell me you didn't. Honey, call Mike Scott Plumbing.
I didn't do anything.
For once, that's true, but little Johnny flushed his toys down the toilet and now it's broke.
No. I'll get the phone. What's the toll-free number?
866-314-4443.
Got it. 866-314-4443.
Mike Scott Plumbing. If water runs through it, they do it. At Mike Scott Plumbing, from the moment you walk through the doors, it's evident that quality is key. From our fully stocked parts department to our fully trained service technicians who can help with anything from a clogged drain to your irrigation system and even servicing your entire septic system. Visit one of our beautiful showrooms in Hernando or in Wildwood and let us show you how to turn your kitchen and bath dreams into reality. Mike Scott Plumbing. If water runs through it, we do it.
All right, 20 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Our guest is Brian Boyle. He wrote the book, The Patient Experience, The Importance of Care, Communication, and Compassion in the Hospital Room. If you were listening earlier, you heard that he was in a horrible automobile accident and was in a coma for quite a while and was able to at least understand, and it sounds like he could communicate with blinking his eyes, which is something you see in the movies. My goodness, what a time you went through. When you finally came out of the coma, did you know you came out of the coma? If you could hear everything, Was there something that changed when you came out that made you realize you were no longer in the coma?
It was a day-to-day process with the sedation and the recovery. Sometimes they would try to wean me off the heavy sedation and medication, and I could regain my surroundings, regain my bearings of the situation. And my parents and my care providers would come in every day, and they would say the same thing. Brian, you were in a car accident, you have a few broken bones, you'll get here in a few days. But after a few weeks of hearing the same thing, and I'm still paralyzed, I knew it was they're just being pleasant, just trying to be positive with me. When I was able to come out of that actual coma and talk, that was like the final step in coming out of that coma. But between waking up in the hospital bed and regaining the sense of the surroundings and speaking again, that was that long process of just going day to day with the unknown.
Any physical changes from the accident that still are with you?
I have a cardiologist that I see every 5 years, but knock on wood, that is the extent, just to keep everything checked up on.
So where were you in the hospital? In Washington, D.C.?
It was right outside Washington, D.C. in Cheverly, Maryland, and my hospital was Prince George's Hospital Center.
Okay.
You were a swimmer before the accident, and then you went back into the water when you were healed. Did you have any kind of apprehension about going back in the water again?
I was really looking forward to going back to the pool, but I was nervous about how the lungs would respond back in the humid environment, and also just being in the pool too, and not having that strength built up yet. It was about 6 months after leaving ICU that I was back in the pool, but it was not swimming. It was just floating. It was just doggy paddling. Just being back in that environment was a big part of the recovery process. But I was looking forward to it.
Have you shared notes with other people who've gone through similar experiences? And it sounds like yours was a pretty positive experience, actually.
Yeah, I consider myself to have a really great recovery. I've had a lot of amazing support, a lot of teamwork, and that was my whole mission when I left ICU and I was going through rehab. I was in my wheelchair one day and I'm thinking, if I ever get better and make a full recovery, I want to help others in a similar type of experience. And that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years is reaching out, helping other families, other loved ones, other friends, and helping them to navigate through that process, because it's a very unfamiliar realm for a lot of people that are brand new to the healthcare system, especially when unexpected things occur. I want to be there to help them, because in our situation, we had so many questions, but we needed so many answers.
Right.
And those answers are what we're hoping to provide.
Can you explain or give us an example of what a simulation exercise is? And you talk about the importance of simulation exercises, so we need to know what they are and why they're important.
I would say, for care providers, it's all about when you enter into a patient's room, it is about tuning into the patient, getting to know them, getting to know their family, their friends, getting to know them and their background, and just trying to put yourself in their shoes and trying to think what kinds of things that would, make you happy, make you feel better in a situation like that, especially with a person that's unconscious or in a coma. Little things go a long way. Positive energy, smiling, talking, just interacting with them.
Okay, that sounds like stimulation, not simulation. I mean, am I misunderstanding something? In the book, you talk about simulation. Like it sounds to me like, like a video game or something where you're simulating the experience.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes both ways, because with the simulation, you're trying to just step into what that kind of mindset would be, and just trying to think of the different things that you would prefer if you were in that kind of situation as well. One of the simulation specifics that I talked about in the hospital is, for care providers to almost, to go into even like a lab setting, maybe even like during nursing school or medical school, or even, just in a regular practice, and just tuning out of all the outside things and just trying to just lay like flat on the surface and just not talk, not communicate, and just see for 20 minutes or a half hour what that is like for the mind, and just try to embrace that expence going into the hospital room with the patient. Just trying to get to that mindset.
I gotcha.
How lonely and how, it's a very lonely environment, but to actually step in that kind of mindset and see what it's like to embrace that. That's the first step in
I
getting
got
into
you.
the patient
That sounds easier said than done. Robin and I, we participated once in an Alzheimer's simulation or virtual Alzheimer's experience, and we had to wear glasses that would fog our view. We had to wear headphones that gave us these crazy sounds like our ears weren't working right. We had to have our fingers bound together with strong rubber bands, and we had to have corn in our shoes so it hurt to walk. And then we were put into this hotel room and told to have 3 tasks or 4 tasks, like hang up the clothes, iron the clothes, put away the clothes,
write a letter,
and write a letter, and you couldn't ask anybody what was the task. Once you had to remember everything, and so. It was silly and it was giggly, and when it was all done, I was so glad it was done. And I said, well, can you imagine if that was forever? Like, you're never going to come out of that. No wonder they sometimes get upset and frustrated, you know? It sounds like what you're talking about, or similar to what you're talking about.
Exactly. And what it is, it's taking that vital step into just understanding the mentality, the frustration, the anxiety, the unknown, and just taking all these different kinds of these thoughts and feelings and putting them into the mindset just to kind of go into that experience.
You're a good-looking guy. Did any of the nurses hit on you?
I bet they did.
You got to live. I want to date you when you come out of this coma.
Being the huge patient advocate that you are, sometimes in a hospital setting, most of the patients always seem to complain about the food. Do you think that's something that that there is something therapeutic about that? Because if a person has the ability to complain about something, that shows that you're getting healthier. Is that one of your mantras?
That's actually a good point, because, just to have that whole process, to have those thoughts and those feelings and those judgments and everything, I think that's a big factor. And for me, going through the ICU experience, I mean, it was a day-to-day process, and everything that I did, it was just trying to get from the next step to the next step, and I would try to be as positive and pleasant as possible. And just having this feedback, like you said, just having this feedback was a critical component. And just helping the overall process, helping everyone. It's like a win-win situation for everyone that was in the hospital room when everyone's able to have feedback.
Brian, it sounds like this book is for the family and the friends of the patient, but it sounds like your parents did not need this book. It sounds like they were doing it right.
It was that was the thing. That was one of the things. It was kind of like a learned trial by error kind of thing on our behalf. And when we went through the whole process, I started speaking on behalf of healthcare and behalf of the patient experience a couple of years ago, and then everyone kept saying, Brian, you need to put your thoughts down. This can help a lot of people. So everything that is in this book, it came from my parents, especially my parents, because they lived every single second. When I was in coma, I was on morphine. There really wasn't much pain on my behalf. It was just more that frustration. Right. My parents didn't have that morphine. So this book it's meant for families, it's meant for other patients, it's meant for care providers, and it's meant for anyone who's involved with the recovery of the patient.
Brian, how do we get the book? We've got 25 seconds.
It is online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's in the bookstores, but it is out there. It came out last week. Okay,
and I have a copy of it here. If I have one person who wants it, call me, and you can have it, 622-9622, and we'll put your name on it, leave it for you here at the station. Brian Boyle, again, the book is called The Patient Experience. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for being on the air, and I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it.
All right, we'll take a little break. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pam Puso. A college campus in North Carolina is locked down after one person was shot and killed in the library of Wayne Community College. That's according to an official in the city of Goldsboro.